Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today, the stock market is inflating at breakneck speed, AI is physically rewriting reality, and political shockwaves are wiping out entire elections overnight.
Yeah, it is a wild one today.
Seriously. Welcome to today's deep dive into the raw news wire. You are with us to pull apart today's biggest threads and see exactly how they connect.
And look, keep your head on a swivel today, because if you look closely at this feed, you see a massive collision playing out in real time.
Right.
On one side, you have these incredibly bold utopian promises from tech and finance. But on the other side, deep, systemic, physical cracks.
Yeah.
We need to figure out who is actually going to be left holding the bag when those two forces finally hit each other.
Well, let's start with the money, because honestly, the numbers coming across the wire today feel like a total fever dream.
Oh, absolutely.
I am looking at a post from Eddie Elfenbein about the S&P 500, and it is staggering. He's reporting that the S&P 500 just gained 1/8 of its entire value.
Which is insane.
Right. That is 12.5% in a mere 16 trading days. It closed at 7,137.97.
Wow.
And the drivers here appear to be Q1 earnings coming in hot, like around 13% growth, and then the news of an Iran ceasefire kind of cooling off those energy concerns.
Sure.
But, gaining 1/8 of the total market value in just over 2 weeks, that speed feels completely unprecedented.
It's the definition of euphoria, honestly. But, that you have to look under the hood at the mechanics of a surge like this.
Yeah.
Because it is rarely just pure healthy compounding. When a market cap jumps that violently, you often aren't seeing massive broad-based buying of every single share. You're mostly seeing low trading volume at the margins.
Wait, explain how that works for the listener. Because if the whole market goes up 12%, shouldn't that mean like a massive flood of cash actually entered the system?
Well, not necessarily. Think of it like a neighborhood of 100 houses. If 99 people refuse to sell their homes, and one person buys a single house for $1 million over asking price, the theoretical market cap of the entire neighborhood just skyrocketed based on one transaction.
Ah, right. Got it.
Right. So when valuations stretch this far, this fast, the risk isn't just a gradual correction. The risk is an air pocket.
Right.
If the broader asset inflation stalls, you really have to ask, who is left to buy at the absolute top?
That is a phenomenal question, and actually it transitions perfectly into a post I saw from Naval. Because the answer to who is buying at the top might literally be, well, you, the retail investor.
Yeah, I saw this one.
So Naval just announced the launch of USVC. It's an SEC-registered fund operating through AngelList, and it is designed to give everyday retail investors access to heavy-hitter private tech companies.
Heavy hitters is an understatement.
Totally. We are talking OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI, Sierra, Vercel, and there's a $500 minimum and absolutely no accreditation required.
Yeah.
Naval is branding this as the democratization of, quote, adventure capital.
Adventure capital, I'll give them points for brilliant marketing.
It's good hook.
It is, but let's look at the second-order effects here, and especially the timing. Traditional venture capital is notoriously illiquid. You write a check, your money is locked up in a private company for 5 to 10 years, and you basically just wait for an IPO or an acquisition.
Right, your money is just stuck.
Exactly. But now, suddenly, Naval is saying this new fund will aim for up to 5% quarterly redemptions to ease those lockups for retail buyers. Why the sudden push for liquidity in a traditionally illiquid space?
Okay, I hear you leaning toward this being a trap, but I'll defend the retail side here for a second.
Go for it.
For the last decade, everyday investors have just watched institutional VCs get insanely wealthy off early-stage growth, while retail only gets to buy in after the IPO, when the explosive growth is already over.
True.
So opening up access to foundational companies like Anthropic, it seems like a genuine win for the little guy.
It is a win, conditionally. But you cannot ignore the macroeconomic environment we just talked about.
The euphoria.
Right. We are at the bleeding edge of an AI valuation bubble. Institutional players have pumped these companies into the stratosphere. At a certain point, those early investors want to realize their gains.
Yeah.
But if the IPO market is tight, they need another exit strategy. By packaging this into a retail fund, the institutional money might simply be looking for retail exit liquidity right at the absolute peak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they are opening the gates for the $500 investor specifically so the early money can cash out.
So the risk is that retail investors are being invited to the poker table just as the pros are cashing in their chips.
That is the cynical, but mechanically sound way to view it. And it highlights a broader theme today, the rules of the game suddenly shifting.
Oh, speaking of shifting rules, we need to look at what is happening with our political structures right now, because this is wild.
Yeah, this next one is intense.
And real quick, to everyone listening, we are not taking political sides here. We're just looking impartially at the systemic shock of this news.
Right, strictly the mechanics.
So there's a breaking post from Midas Touch. They're reporting that a Republican-appointed judge in Virginia, Jack Hurley, just struck down a Democratic-backed redistricting amendment.
HJR 6007.
Exactly, HJR 6007. He ruled it completely unconstitutional and, quote, void from the start.
That phrasing void from the start, that has massive systemic implications.
It does. Because this isn't just a debate over some future map. This ruling literally invalidates an election that just happened.
Yep.
The April 21 special election on the new congressional maps is suddenly nullified. The judge ruled that there were procedural violations in the legislative process leading up to it, specifically citing misleading ballot language and improper timing for early voting.
Right. So let's strip away the partisan tug-of-war here and look purely at the structural mechanics of what just happened. The Republican plaintiffs successfully argued that the process of building the election was constitutionally defective, making the actual outcome irrelevant.
And the Democratic Attorney General, Jay Jones, is immediately appealing.
Right. And his argument is based on precedent. He is pointing out that the Virginia Supreme Court has previously allowed the amendment process to proceed despite similar procedural rulings from this exact same judge.
So you have this huge clash between procedural perfection and legal precedent. But wait, what happens to the voters who actually showed up on April 21st?
See, that is the real crisis. Think about the consumer of this process, the voter.
Yeah.
Imagine you sign a complex contract to buy a house. You transfer the funds, you get the keys, and a week later, a judge tells you the escrow company printed the paperwork on the wrong size paper, so you don't own the house anymore.
Oh man, that's brutal.
The legal logic regarding the paper size might be technically sound, but your trust in the banking system is permanently shattered.
Right. You just stop participating.
Exactly. When a public action, an event people physically participated in, is retroactively voided, it creates a massive deficit in institutional trust. It breeds structural instability.
Yeah.
People begin to assume the rules just don't matter because they can be changed after the game is played.
Which is a terrifying thought when you realize how much capital is flowing into systems that are actively trying to rewrite the rules of how we work and live.
Absolutely.
Let's pivot to the tech itself. Because these AI companies we mentioned earlier, the ones raising all that retail capital, they are releasing products that fundamentally alter our daily reality. OpenAI just announced new workspace agents for ChatGPT.
Okay, let's break down what that actually means, practically speaking.
Right, because these aren't just chat bots where you type a question and get an answer.
Yeah.
These are shared cloud-based agents that autonomously handle complex, long-running workflows. They integrate directly into the software a company already uses, like Slack, linear CRMs. The pitch is that they can route feedback, qualify sales leads, update project tickets entirely in the background without a human ever having to click a button or write an email.
Which sounds like a utopian efficiency dream on a pitch deck.
Sure.
But let's look at the actual reality of implementation here. We might not be eliminating bureaucracy, we might just be automating it.
Wait, how so? If the bot is doing the busy work, doesn't that free up my time?
It frees up your time to manage the bot.
Oh.
Imagine a scenario where your AI agent qualifies a lead and sends an automated pitch.
Okay.
The client you are pitching also has an AI agent, which reads your bot's pitch, flags it for follow-up, and emails back. You are basically creating a loop of digital red tape operating without human oversight.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. And the enterprise controls and permissions required to make sure your bot doesn't accidentally, promise a client a 50% discount are immense. The friction of managing, auditing, and correcting these bots could easily eclipse the friction of just doing the work yourself.
I hear that skepticism, but I think we might be underestimating how terrifyingly capable the underlying logic of these models is actually becoming.
Okay, lay it on me.
It isn't just generating text emails anymore. I wanted to point you to a post from Riley Goodside. He got access to ChatGPT Images 2.0.
Yeah, I saw this demo.
He asked it to generate a 3D, photorealistic image of a six-sided die. But instead of standard dots, the pips, he told it to place working, scannable QR codes on each face, linking to the Wikipedia articles for the numbers 1 through 6.
Which, just for context, Creating a visual QR code from scratch is notoriously difficult for AI because it requires pixel-perfect spatial reasoning.
Well, it did it flawlessly. The
Unbelievable.
model generated accurate QR codes internally and then mapped them onto the 3D geometry of the die. It even understood standard dice rules, making sure the opposite face is summed to 7. You can literally hold your phone up to the screen and scan the sides of the AI-generated die.
That is actually a phenomenal technical leap, and it's worth explaining why.
Yeah, go ahead.
For a long time, AI image generators were just dreaming up statistical averages of pixels. They didn't actually know what a hand was, which is why they drew 7 fingers.
Right, the weird melted hands.
Exactly. But this shows the AI has underlying semantic understanding. It understands the physical rules of a die. It understands the digital encoding logic required to make a QR code functional. And it understands the spatial physics required to map a flat image onto a curved 3D plane without distorting the code.
Wow.
It's bridging digital encoding with the simulation of physical reality.
And that bridge is already moving from simulation into the actual physical world. Xpeng Global posted a video promoting their AI Tech Museum at the Beijing Auto Show.
Right.
They aren't just showing off software on screens anymore. They're displaying large-scale physical AI models, next-generation humanoid robotics, and, like the AeroHT flying car.
Yeah.
The promise is that this multimodal intelligence, the exact same intelligence that can reason through a 3D QR code, is now going to drive our cars and run our factories.
And here is where the utopian dream crashes headfirst into the hardware wall.
The reality check.
A severe one. It is very easy to generate a perfect QR code on a digital die in a simulated environment. It is incredibly difficult to manufacture a machine that safely navigates the physical world.
Right.
Software scales infinitely. If you write a great piece of code, you can deploy it to 1 billion devices instantly for almost zero marginal cost. Hardware is bounded by physics, time, and materials. And we literally just got confirmation of this friction from Sawyer Merritt's post regarding Tesla.
This is a massive development for anyone following autonomous driving. Elon Musk officially confirmed that Tesla's older hardware, specifically Hardware 3 or HW3, cannot achieve unsupervised full self-driving.
Think about the paradigm shift there. For years, the core promise of Tesla was that hardware you bought was already future-proof.
Right.
The narrative was, buy the car now, and eventually the software will catch up, download via Wi-Fi, and your car will drive itself while you sleep. Musk is now admitting out loud that you cannot code your way out of a physical hardware bottleneck.
Because the cameras and the computers in those older cars simply cannot process real-world data fast enough to handle, like, the ambiguity of a rainy intersection or a confusing construction zone.
Right. You cannot download a better camera lens. You cannot download more physical compute cycles.
So what happens to the people who bought those cars expecting autonomy? Tesla is offering discounted trade-ins for cars with the new AI-4 hardware.
Yeah.
They're also setting up microfactories in major cities to offer physical retrofits, literally ripping out the old computers and cameras and replacing them for HW3 owners.
Which is wild.
The reaction is completely split. You have furious owners threatening lawsuits over broken promises, and you have others praising Tesla for actually stepping up and offering a physical upgrade path rather than just abandoning the older fleet.
Let's analyze the sheer scale of the logistical nightmare they're walking into. Think about the physical supply chain required here. You have to manufacture hundreds of thousands of new cameras and microchips. You have to ship them globally. You have to train technicians, allocate service center bays, and physically crack open the dashboards of these cars to retrofit them.
Yeah.
This is what I mean when I say the physical world collects its toll. So when we look at Xpen's humanoid robots, or this flood of retail money entering USVC hoping for infinite AI returns, you have to ask yourself, how much of this AI boom is going to violently bottleneck because we simply don't have the manufacturing capacity to build the physical vessels for it?
It is the ultimate test of leadership, really. When the digital dream hits physical reality, human beings actually have to manage that collision. And right now, we are seeing two wildly different philosophies for how to lead through these complex physical problems.
Yeah, these next two posts are a perfect contrast.
Totally. There is a trending post from Trung Fan about John Ternus, who is slated to take over as Apple's CEO in September. Fan shared a commencement speech Ternus gave a couple years ago at Penn Engineering. Ternus told this story about working on the Apple Cinema display early in his career. He described being at a supplier's factory past midnight, using a magnifying glass to check if a hidden screw, like a screw the customer would never ever see, had 25 grooves or 35 grooves.
The total obsessive dedication to micro details. You paint the back of the fence even if nobody's going to look at it because it establishes a culture of zero compromises.
Contrast that with a post from Damian Player. He shared a leaked 2021 internal email from Elon Musk. Musk told his managers that when he gives an explicit instruction, they have exactly 3 options.
Only 3.
They can push back and explain why he's wrong, they can ask for clarification, or they can execute. If they do anything else, they're asked to resign immediately.
It is fascinating to look at the second-order effects of these 2 leadership styles because they perfectly explain why their respective companies operate the way they do. Apple's method ensures unshakable premium quality. When you buy an Apple product, you trust the hardware completely. But the vulnerability is speed. Obsessing over the grooves on a hidden screw means your product development cycle is slow, and you risk missing major market shifts like, say, the initial generative AI boom.
And Musk's method is the exact opposite.
Right. The execute or resign mandate creates 10x speed. It instantly eliminates bureaucratic bottlenecks and middle management hesitation.
Yeah.
But the vulnerability is that it overlooks real-world ambiguity. Sometimes the right answer isn't execute or resign. Sometimes the physical constraint requires a nuanced compromise. If you push a team to execute impossible software on inadequate hardware, you eventually hit a wall.
Like realizing your hardware 3 cameras aren't good enough, despite the mandate to execute the self-driving code.
Precisely. The sledgehammer approach eventually finds a nail it can't break.
Well, we have these intense ground-level debates about how to manage products. But on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, we have leadership trying to manage the planet.
Yeah, the macro view.
It's Earth Day. And NASA posted breathtaking photos taken by the Artemis II astronauts during their lunar flyby.
Yeah.
It is that classic pale blue dot perspective. You see the curvature of the Earth, the deep blue oceans, the incredibly thin atmosphere, all set against the absolute blackness of space. It's designed to be a reminder of planetary unity. Complementing that, Barack Obama posted a video highlighting Louisa Neubauer, a German climate activist from his foundation. She just traveled to Antarctica to observe the physical impacts of climate change directly.
Those posts are powerful because they utilize a high-altitude, unifying communication strategy. From space or from the isolated ice of Antarctica, human problems look singular. It's aspirational messaging.
Definitely.
But the friction comes when you try to apply high-altitude policy to ground-level reality. Public policy is not executed in a vacuum. It is executed in the chaotic, messy reality of daily human behavior.
And nothing is messier than public health policy, which brings us to an incredible clip posted by Aaron Rupar. Again, to everyone listening, we are just analyzing the structural mechanics of the policy shift here, not endorsing any political side.
Right. The data is what matters here.
So it's from a tense Senate exchange between Senator Michael Bennet and Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. Bennet is pressing the secretary on recent CDC data. The data shows that 89% of vaccine-eligible children who died from the flu in the previous season were not fully vaccinated.
Let's analyze the mechanics of this exchange, specifically focusing on how policy communication alters ground-level metrics.
Okay, so the setup is that RFK Jr. dodged the exact figure. He stated he didn't know the exact number while experiencing, audible vocal spasms. Bennett then directly confronted him about the fact that HHS recently took down communications that actively promoted the flu vaccine.
This is a critical case study in public policy mechanisms. Regardless of the political figures involved, we are watching a fundamental shift in how the primary health apparatus of a nation communicates. Historically, the HHS has used a strategy of directive promotion. They run ad campaigns, they send text reminders, they actively push the population to take a specific action.
And Bennett was explicitly challenging the removal of those promotional materials.
Right, because the current HHS has notably shifted its messaging strategy toward informed consent. Instead of active promotion, the posture becomes passive. The information is available if you seek it out, but the government is not actively pushing you toward it.
Yeah.
The systemic question is, what happens to human behavior when you make that shift? The CDC data point provides the answer. 89% of those tragic fatalities were unvaccinated. When leadership removes the friction of a strong recommendation and replaces it with passive informed consent, human behavior defaults to inaction.
If people are busy.
Exactly. People are busy, they're distracted. If they aren't actively reminded or encouraged, they often just skip the appointment.
So a top-down philosophical shift in communication directly and measurably alters biological outcomes on the ground.
It's ideology hitting biology. You can debate the ethics of the communication strategy all day, but the mechanical reality is that altering the message alters the metric.
Man, that truly is the through line of everything we have unpacked today. We're watching massive abstract forces crash headfirst into unforgiving realities. We have AI software promises hitting the physical limits of hardware at Tesla.
Yep.
We have the stock market rallying and private AI funds launching, while retail investors might be walking into a liquidity trap. We have election laws colliding with constitutional procedure in Virginia, completely shattering voter trust. And we have philosophical shifts in public health policy colliding with biological outcomes.
And look, if we want to predict where this is all heading, look entirely at the trends we track today. Tomorrow, you are going to see a massive realization regarding hardware supply chains.
How so?
Well, as retail money floods into these private AI funds through vehicles like USVC, the financial expectations are going to be sky high. But every software company is eventually going to hit the same wall Tesla just hit. You cannot code your way out of a physical bottleneck.
Right.
The real winners of the next 5 years will not be the companies building AI wrappers or digital workspace agents. The real winners will be the companies physically manufacturing the microchips, the lenses, and the actual screws that hold the physical world together.
The physical world always collects its toll. It really makes you wonder. With AI learning to perfectly render the physics and functionality of a six-sided die in a simulation, how long until it realizes it needs to build a physical factory to actually roll it?
Now, that is a terrifying thought.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the raw wire. Keep questioning the consensus, always look for the second-order effects, and we will catch you next time.